My mom tossed out my 8-year-old's favorite clothes saying, "She looks poor in these." Her cousin laughed and added, "It's honestly embarrassing." My daughter was crying. I didn't argue. I just did this. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived, and when they opened it, their faces turned pale. My daughter Kayla is 8. She's sweet, smart, and absolutely obsessed with that faded unicorn hoodie she's had since kindergarten. It's way too small now, barely reaches her wrists, but she won't let it go. Says it's her lucky charm. The hoodie's got this ridiculous horn stitched on the hood and sequins that fell off years ago, but she thinks it's magical. Honestly, I kind of do too. We don't have much, but we've got each other. I work 2 jobs. Marketing assistant during the day and freelance design work when Kayla goes to bed. It's exhausting, but we make it work. She's never gone hungry, never missed a field trip. I say no to things more than I'd like to, but she's never once made me feel bad about it. My kid gets it. 2 weekends ago, my mom insisted we come visit. Said it had been too long. I hesitated. My parents are the kind of rich that makes other rich people uncomfortable. Everything in their house looks like a showroom. Even their dog has a designer bed. And they treat me like some kind of charity project who failed out of the family. But Kayla missed them. She kept asking when we'd go to grandma's again. So I gave in. Big mistake. It started the moment we walked in. My mom scanned Kayla's clothes, barely hugged her, then offered her a cashmere blanket because she looked cold in that rag. Jenna, my cousin, the one who calls Target quaint, was there too, all fake nice and tight smiles. I told myself to suck it up for Kayla's sake. We were only staying the weekend. On Sunday morning, I went upstairs to grab something from our room and came back down to find Kayla sitting on the couch, hugging her knees. Her eyes were glassy. The unicorn hoodie was gone. I asked her where it was. She whispered, "Grandma threw it out." My mom was sipping her coffee like nothing happened. She looked at me and said, "Jessica, that thing was disgusting. She looks poor in these clothes. I did you a favor." And then Jenna, bless her cruel little heart, laughed and said, "It's honestly embarrassing. Like people think you're struggling." I didn't respond. Not a single word. Just looked at them for a second. Then I turned to Kayla and said we were leaving. No drama. No yelling. I wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. My mom started with her usual act, saying I was being overly sensitive, that it was just a hoodie, that I was teaching Kayla to be emotionally fragile. I didn't answer. We packed up, drove home. I let Kayla pick out anything she wanted from the pancake place we pass every time we drive back from their house. While she ate her chocolate chip pancakes and watched cartoons on my phone, I sat there thinking. Then I went home and wrote a letter. Not a text. Not an email. A proper letter. 2 pages. I told them everything. I told them how disgusting it was to treat a child like a fashion accessory. How for all their money they've never once helped. Not with school, not with clothes, not with a single goddamn doctor's visit. And how I wouldn't let my daughter grow up believing she had to earn love by dressing the part. I ended it with this. You won't see us again. And you have no one to blame but yourselves. 2 weeks later, the letter arrived. My sister called me that night. Said Mom looked like someone had slapped her. Jenna apparently read it out loud and went quiet halfway through. I guess they weren't expecting consequences. But that was just the beginning. Because right around the time that letter landed, something happened. Something I hadn't planned but changed everything, fast. And they were about to find out just how wrong they'd been about me. The funny thing is, I almost canceled that coffee. It was a Tuesday. I'd worked late the night before finishing up a freelance project. Kayla had been coughing all night and I looked as tired as I felt. My neighbor, Denise, offered to keep an eye on Kayla for a bit. She's a retired nurse, the kind of woman who keeps extra chicken soup in her freezer for situations just like this. So I gave in, threw on clean jeans and went to the cafe down the block. It wasn't anything special. One of those quiet, tucked-away spots with old wooden tables and the kind of baristas who remember your order. I went there to breathe. I'd noticed him there before, Eric. Though I didn't know his name then. Always with a notebook, always reading something technical. Neatly dressed but not flashy. Just put together. Confident without trying. That day he was already at his usual corner table when I walked in. He glanced up, gave me this polite nod and went back to whatever he was reading. I got my coffee and sat at the table next to his. I was about halfway through checking my emails when he said something casual like we'd talked before. "You're in marketing, right?" I looked up. Maybe he'd overheard a phone call from another day. I said, "Yeah, kind of. Mostly freelance now." He asked what kind of work I did, what clients I took on, what I liked about it. It wasn't a job interview, just a normal conversation, which felt rare. I told him the truth, that I loved building stories around people's ideas, but I hated the instability, that I was tired, that it felt like I was always chasing the next invoice. He listened. No advice, no judging, just listened. Then he reached into his bag and handed me a card. It had his name, Eric M. And the name of a company I didn't recognize at first. Just a logo and a website. He said, if you're open to something more stable, shoot me your portfolio. We're looking for someone who understands real people. I went home and looked up the company. I blinked at the screen. Eric wasn't just someone who worked there. He was the co-founder. And the company? It was a mid-sized tech firm that had just landed a major contract with a Fortune 100 company. Their marketing was solid, clean, modern, but their storytelling was weak. They needed someone who could make people care. That night, after Kayla finally fell asleep, I stayed up and pulled together every decent campaign I'd ever worked on. I rewrote my bio. I tweaked my case studies. I hit send at 1:34 a.m. By Thursday, Eric emailed. Said he liked what he saw and asked if I could come in for a conversation on Monday. Not an interview. Just a conversation. I almost backed out. I didn't feel ready. I didn't feel like someone who belonged in a downtown office with glass walls and catered lunches. I felt like a single mom in clearance jeans who just got humiliated by her own family for not buying her kid respectable clothes. But I went. That Monday turned into a 90-minute meeting. Then a video call the next day. Then an offer. Marketing lead. Full-time. Remote first. Full benefits, great pay, and a signing bonus that made me sit down. When I told Kayla, she jumped into my lap and said, "Are we rich now?" I laughed. "Oh baby. But we're okay. Really okay." And I knew exactly what I was going to do next. I waited a few days, then wrote another letter to my parents. Just a single page this time. Not dramatic. Just factual. I let them know I'd accepted a new position. That things were changing quickly and that Kayla and I were doing better than ever. I mentioned casually that we'd finally been able to get her some new clothes, including a new unicorn hoodie, oversized on purpose because that's how she likes it. I didn't ask for anything. I didn't offer to reconnect. I just let them know we were moving forward and not looking back. I heard from my sister that Mom read it 3 times silently. That Jenna rolled her eyes but didn't say much. I didn't care either way. That letter wasn't for them. It was for me. But I will admit this. Knowing they were sitting there, realizing I hadn't collapsed after walking away, that I'd actually done better, was a kind of satisfaction I hadn't felt in years. And the best part? That was only the beginning. I waited exactly 1 week before I made my move. Not because I needed time to think, I already knew what I wanted to do, but because I wanted it to simmer. Let the silence work on them. Let them wonder whether I'd say anything, whether I'd come back. I wanted that brief window of false confidence to exist, just long enough for the fall to sting. When I finally posted, it was simple. A photo of Kayla and me on the couch. She was curled up next to me, beaming, wearing her brand new unicorn hoodie. Bright pink glitter-lined ears, giant sparkly horn that leaned sideways like a cartoon. Looked ridiculous and perfect. The sleeves nearly swallowed her hands just the way she liked it. I was smiling too. Hair still damp from the shower, no makeup, hoodie of my own. We looked happy. We were happy. Caption read, "New hoodie, new job, new start." Turns out we're not as poor as we look. No hashtags. No dramatic wording. No mentions of anyone. Didn't have to. I didn't tag my mom or Jenna, but they saw it anyway. Jenna's always stalking my stories, pretending she's too busy to care what I'm doing while lurking at 2 a.m. on her burner account with the fake name. My sister told me the group chat lit up less than an hour after I posted. Apparently Jenna sent it first. Screenshot and all. Said something like, "Is this about what happened?" My mom didn't answer right away. Which is rare. She always has something to say even when nobody's asking. But this time, silence. Until she finally replied with, "She's being dramatic." That was rich coming from the woman who threw out a child's clothing like it was evidence of failure. Later that night, I got a call from a number I recognized instantly. I let it ring. Then again. Same number. I ignored it. The 3rd time I picked up, not because I wanted to talk but because I wanted them to hear me not caring. My mom started soft. That syrupy tone she reserves for when she wants something. "Jessica, we saw your post. We didn't mean to hurt anyone. We were just concerned about Kayla's appearance. You know how people can judge." I cut her off. "You judged her. Not people." There was a pause. Then she said something about wanting to make things right, about talking things through. The usual PR speech. I could hear Jenna's voice in the background, saying something I couldn't make out. I told her I was busy and hung up. Then I texted her one line. "We're not interested in pretending." She didn't reply. A few days later my dad called. He never calls. Ever. Growing up, he was the background noise to my mom's commentary. Never defended me, never spoke up. Just stood by with his hands in his pockets while she chipped away at everything. This time he left a voicemail. He said he'd heard about my new job. That they were proud of me. That if I needed anything they were here to support me. I listened to it twice then deleted it. Proud. That word used to mean something to me. I used to chase it. Straight A's, scholarships, awards, none of it was ever enough. Because in their world, success wasn't real unless it came with status, money and someone else's approval. Now the irony was thick enough to choke on. Because what they didn't know, and what I hadn't told anyone yet, was that the job offer came with more than just a salary. It came with equity. A decent chunk too. The kind that could, if things went the way they were projected, make me a millionaire in a few years. The company was growing fast and I was coming in at the right time. Right place. Right skills. Right person. For the first time in my life I wasn't surviving. I was building. I sat on that fact. Kept it quiet. Not because I wanted to hide it but because I wanted the reveal to be mine. Not for them to use as a reason to crawl back. Not for their bragging rights. No, I wanted them to feel the distance. To know that in just 2 weeks, everything changed without them, despite them, and because of them. I wasn't angry anymore. I was in control. And I was going to make sure they knew it. About a week after my dad's voicemail, the one where he said they were proud of me, a letter arrived at our apartment. Real paper, thick envelope, no return address. My name was written on the front in cursive, like it was 1950 and someone was inviting me to tea. For a second I thought it was from my mother. She's always loved the drama of handwritten notes when she wants to appear graceful while delivering insults. But the handwriting was off. Too neat. Too careful. It was from my aunt, Marianne, my mom's younger sister. We hadn't spoken in years. She always kept her distance from family drama, which in our family took Olympic-level effort. Her letter was short. Said she'd heard about what happened, and that she wanted to invite me and Kayla over for dinner. Just us. No hidden agendas, no pressure. Just a quiet evening. I almost didn't go. I didn't trust anyone with that last name. But something about it felt different. So I called her. He sounded calm, even kind. Said she was sorry for everything, and not in that vague performative way most people apologize. He meant it. I could tell. She said she'd been watching from the sidelines for too long. That Friday night Kayla and I drove over. Her house was nothing like my parents' cold marble mansion. It was warm, cozy, smelled like real food and lavender. She hugged us both and gave Kayla a small gift. A unicorn charm necklace. Kayla looked like she'd been handed a treasure from a dragon's cave. Dinner was quiet, easy. She didn't ask intrusive questions. Didn't bring up my parents until dessert, when she set down her tea and looked at me. Jessica, I'm just going to say this once. Your parents care more about how things look than how people feel. And people are watching now. I raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? She leaned back and said, they thought cutting you off would scare you, humble you. But it's doing the opposite. They're embarrassed now because people are starting to talk. Church, the club, even some of Jenna's so-called friends. Word got out about what happened. About Kayla. About how you left. And now they're scrambling to look like the victims. I just stared at her for a moment. Marianne wasn't the type to exaggerate. Then she added, they think you'll come around. That eventually you'll forgive them. They think you need them. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was sad. And familiar. She looked at me and said, they don't realize what you've become. That stuck with me. Later that night after I got Kayla to bed I checked my phone. A message from Jenna. It was a photo of a letter. One of those heavy, legal-looking envelopes. Her message underneath said, thought you should see this. The photo showed a document from my parents' estate lawyer. A formal letter. Something about revising inheritance documents. I laughed again. Different this time. They were cutting me out of the will. That was their next move. Their final threat. The silent punishment. No more future family money for the disappointment daughter and her poor-looking child. I replied, thanks. Hope the rest of you enjoy fighting over it. She left me on read. The next morning Kayla and I were walking to school. She was wearing her new hoodie, a different one, sky blue with glitter stars, and skipping beside me. Out of nowhere she asked, are we still too poor for Grandma's house? I stopped, looked down at her and smiled. No baby, I said. We're way too rich for people like that. And I didn't just mean money. I meant peace, freedom, self-respect. The ability to tell the people who tried to break us that we're doing better than ever, without them. And that wasn't even the end. Because I wasn't just done with them. I was ready to finish this. 2 weeks after the inheritance stunt, I got another envelope in the mail. Not legal this time, personal. Cream paper. Familiar handwriting. It was from my mother. 4 handwritten pages, folded neatly. I opened it just enough to read the first line. Jessica, we never meant to hurt you, but... I didn't need to read another word. That but told me everything. They never change. There's always a reason, always an excuse. And the truth is they didn't care that they hurt me. They only cared that I finally stopped giving them access to do it again. I burned it, lit a match and watched it curl into black flakes in the sink while Kayla did her homework on the couch. That night, I sat down and thought about the version of the story they were probably telling everyone. I could hear it in my head. Jessica's ungrateful. She's emotional. We tried everything. She just pushed us away. So I decided to do something they'd never expect. I went public. Not on Instagram, not TikTok, not where I usually post. No, I went straight to Facebook. The one I barely use, the one full of extended family, church people, old family friends. The audience they care about. I posted a photo of Kayla and me sitting on the floor of our apartment, decorating a little $40 Christmas tree. String lights, paper snowflakes, 2 mugs of hot cocoa. You could see Kayla's smile. That kind of real joy you can't fake. Then I wrote. Some people think love is a luxury, something you have to earn. That if your clothes aren't expensive, your value isn't real. I used to believe them. I tried to please them. I let them shame me and I stayed quiet for years. But now, I'm raising a daughter who knows love isn't a prize, it's a promise. We don't have a mansion or designer anything. But we laugh every day. We support each other. And that, to me, is wealth. I posted it and walked away. Turned off comments after 20 minutes. By then, it had already spread. My sister called that night. Her voice sounded like she was trying not to laugh. She said, "You broke them." Apparently, Mom had one of her full-blown panic spirals. Called my dad at work, called Jenna, even called the pastor's wife. She tried to get the post taken down. Flagged it as targeted harassment, which Facebook ignored. Jenna sent a screenshot to my sister saying, "She's making us look bad." My sister replied, "You did that yourselves." I didn't respond to any of it. I didn't have to. I was done defending myself. Done proving anything. The world could finally see what I had always seen, and they hated it. A few days later, something happened that caught me off guard. Kayla and I were out for dinner at this little Italian place down the block. Nothing fancy, just one of those family-run spots with paper menus and the best garlic knots in the world. She was wearing her purple hoodie and reading the menu like she was deciding on stock options. On our way out, we ran into a woman I hadn't seen in over 10 years. Diane. She used to be my mother's best friend. Country club, charity events, plastic smile type. I braced myself. Thought she was going to say something backhanded or awkward. But instead she gently pulled me aside. She said, "I saw your post. And I just want you to know. I always knew your mother was cruel. People just didn't say it out loud. But watching you stand up like that, that's what strength looks like." I didn't know what to say. She smiled, handed Kayla a wrapped mint from her purse, and walked away like it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. Because I knew the cracks were spreading. The version of me they tried to destroy, the quiet, obedient disappointment, was gone. And in her place was someone who didn't need their table, their approval, or their money. Later that week, Jenna posted a photo with my parents at some fundraiser. She captioned it, "Family is everything." No one liked it. I'm not kidding. Not a single person. Meanwhile, people were still sharing my post. DMs came in from cousins I barely talked to. From a girl I went to high school with. From an old teacher. They said things like, "This hit me," and "Thank you for saying it." My parents didn't reach out again. Not because they'd accepted it, but because they were trying to figure out how they lost control. And that honestly was better than any apology they could ever fake. I wasn't trying to ruin them. I just told the truth. And for people like them, that's the most brutal revenge of all. By late January, the silence from my parents wasn't awkward anymore. It was calculated. That's the difference. Normal people stay quiet out of guilt or distance. They go quiet when they're trying to reset the board. Wait for the dust to settle so they can rewrite the story, slide back in like they were the ones wronged. But this time the story had already been told. And they weren't the heroes anymore. The job had taken off quicker than I expected. Within 2 months, I was running point on 2 national campaigns and sitting in meetings with people whose names used to be on the backs of conference badges I couldn't afford to attend. My manager told me the CEO mentioned me in a board meeting, said I was a fixer. I almost cried in the break room after hearing that. Kayla started asking different questions. Not about money or why we didn't have what Grandma and Grandpa had, but about how I learned to do the work I do, how she could learn design too. She started drawing logos on the backs of cereal boxes and pitching them to me like mock-ups. One of them said, "Kayla Co. We help sad people be fun again." I framed it. And then just when things finally felt settled, my sister texted me. "So, you're going to love this." Attached was a screenshot from the family group chat I'd been kicked out of years ago. My mom had written a long message about the importance of forgiveness, and how the family needed to start healing before too much time passes. Then came the line that actually made me laugh. "We should consider letting Jessica come back into the family." if she's ready to have a serious talk and follow some boundaries. Letting me back in. As if I'd been standing outside their gated little bubble this whole time, waiting for an invitation. I didn't reply to my sister, but she sent another message a few days later. Jenna and Scott are selling their boat. Rumor is they're having serious money issues. Guess who's helping cover their credit card debt? It wasn't a guess. My parents had spent years flaunting their lifestyle like it proved something. They made sure people saw them. The vacations, the upgrades, the parties. But apparently beneath it things were starting to crack. I heard the lake house was being discussed, as in possibly going on the market. None of it shocked me. People who only invest in appearances always end up bankrupt somewhere else. And the best part? I didn't feel sorry for them. I didn't feel anything. A few nights later I took Kayla to a bookstore. She wanted to buy a unicorn sketchbook with her own money. $5 she'd saved from helping a neighbor shovel snow. As we walked past the children's section, a woman tapped my arm. She looked familiar. It took a second to place her. It was the wife of one of my dad's old golf buddies. The same woman who used to compliment my mom's outfits like she was afraid not to. She smiled at me then said softly, "I just want you to know, a lot of us saw what happened. And a lot of us think you did the right thing." I didn't even have time to respond. She just gave a quick nod and walked away. Later in the car Kayla said, "That lady looked like someone who's never yelled before." I laughed harder than I had in days. Things kept moving. My salary increased. I hired a sitter to watch Kayla during some of my longer meetings. We started looking at bigger apartments, ones with an extra room I could turn into an office. Not once during all of it did I wish they were around to see it. Because I knew they were watching. That was part of their punishment, to see me win from a distance with no hand in any of it. Then one day Kayla asked, "If we see Grandma again, should I pretend to be fancy?" I looked at her. Her face was completely serious. And it hit me, she still had that small lingering idea that maybe if she tried hard enough they might be nicer next time. "No," I said. "You never pretend to be anything for people who can't accept you as you are." She nodded and went back to her drawing. She was sketching a house. Big windows. Trees. A porch swing. At the top she'd written, "Future home for me and Mom." I stared at it for a long time after she fell asleep. We weren't there yet. But we were on our way. I never heard from my parents again after that final group chat. No apologies. No acknowledgements. Just that empty, echoing silence they've always used as a weapon. Except now it didn't cut. It felt like freedom. My sister asked if I'd ever forgive them. I told her I already did. Then I paused and added, "But forgiveness doesn't come with access." She laughed. "That's cold." I said, "No. That's healed." And with that I finally let the door close. No goodbye. No dramatic slam. Just a quiet final click. And the beautiful sound of my own life moving on.